giving you an opportunity to get the full story from the people who tell it best. This is Mediacom News Leaders.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mediacom News Leaders. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Carol Kelly. Joining us today, President of the Iowa Digital Literacy Project, Peter Komendowski. Peter, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me here.
So we're living in a digital world right now. Can you talk a little bit about some of the findings and the difference between smartphones and the relationship between our kids and their viewing practices?
You know, this is a great question because this is a project that the Partnership for Drug-Free Iowa works with Iowa State University and professionals all over the world. And what we've learned is that, as we chase things like drugs and alcohol and tobacco, we really find a lot of people worried about things like violence in schools and other things that are happening. And what's happened is that under the radar, we see a direct correlation with not only violent video games, but how much time kids spend in video games, on the internet, watching TV. Now, some of that's violence. The more violence they eat and watch, the more violent or antisocial they become. So we know there are direct correlations with this, and it's time to let parents know that they need to take control.
Tell us a little bit about why this is so important right now, just as parents to, like you said, parent.
I have a lot of parents that ask me that same question, and I've learned that there's one easy way to make sense of it. Many of us have either gotten the car keys as a teenager or had teenagers that grew up and we had to give them the car keys. And boy, it's stressful. You know what a car does. They get a class, an education in how to drive it. You get insurance. You pretty much know where they go, what they do, and it's really stressful. You're handing them to a key, a key that takes them all over town anywhere else. And we live through it and we survive it. Now, we give kids smartphones, which really aren't smart. They're really keys to a world, a digital world, that also has, unlike where we know where the car goes, we have sexting, we have bullying, we have human trafficking, we have drugs, we have alcohol. And when we ask kids in classrooms, what about the internet is so cool for you that your parents have no clue about? That's what they list: drugs, sex, nudity, all these things that we don't want them to go there. So if we're going to hand our kids a key to a world like that without supervision, what do you think parents are going to expect? So the answer to when should I give my child a smartphone is after they've had a flip phone for a good deal of time.
Tell us a little bit about how many children are negatively impacted by social media and internet use.
Well, I learned a statistic that just blew my mind, that 80% of 13-year-old kids in Iowa accessed pornography on the internet at least twice in the last month. And 48% of the young girls, 13 and younger, did. So we know parents don't supervise things like pornography on the internet. We know they don't supervise the digital world at all. That's really frightening to me, and it should be to parents as well.
Tell us a little bit about how then the digital experiences that they're having relate to and how they connect to substance abuse and drugs and alcohol.
Well, the digital experience has a twofold sort of connection. One, it's a great tool. The potential to do good in the internet is phenomenal. Just like it is to do great things driving a car, going places and exploring the world. But you need the training, you need the discipline, and you have to know not to exercise bad habits. Well, we know children like to take risks. It's part of growing up, we like to think, but not always a healthy part of growing up. There's good risks, like work hard on a football field or maybe study a little too much, and there's bad risks, like drugs, alcohol, and things like that. Well, we can't predict what risks a child's going to take, but we know they're going to do it. So the more experience they get to explore what kind of risks are out there, especially without parental supervision and guidance, the more likely they are to engage in risks that parents would not approve of. And that's what we're seeing, and that includes drugs and alcohol as well as sexting, bullying, texting, and other ills we all worry about as parents.
So some of these statistics that you've said are staggering, but as a parent, how do we start? How do we go into that direction? How do we move? How do we start limiting the TV time and those kinds of things?
Well, I don't think there's a choice. How do you limit them in terms of how much they drive the car? Do you give them carte blanche, give them as much gas as they want and as much money and go drive around? You need to understand that the risks inside of a computer are just as bad or worse than anything you might imagine. And if you're not supervising that interaction, those kids can go someplace you would not want them to go.
Well, we always appreciate the time, Peter. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
This has been Mediacom News Leaders, your opportunity to get the full story from the most reliable sources exclusively on Mediacom News Leaders.